Hi everyone, I'm Sangini from Applied Materials. This is my first time attending and speaking at the FinOps conference, which makes this very exciting. I started my career in capacity planning, which was my introduction to infrastructure, and with cloud, I got introduced to FinOps.
Hi everyone, my name is Sanjna and I'm a product manager with CloudHealth, and this is my fourth time attending FinOps X, but I'm just as excited as I was the first time that I came here. We're here to talk about 50 years of FinOps. So why 50 years and what is 50 years of FinOps? So 50 years is a little tongue-in-cheek. We know FinOps wasn't a term 50 years ago. But rather than diving into the problems that agentic era brings right now, we thought we'd take a step back into the past and see some of the principles that have stood the test of time and gotten us here through disruptive changes. Why 50 years? Why not 40 or 60? Applied Materials, our partner in crime today, was founded about 5 decades ago. And so we thought that would be a good time to take that journey together. And if you have been by our booth, you will see that we have a whole lunar mission going on. We at CloudHealth are a bunch of geeks and nerds, and when the Artemis mission happened more recently, our entire team really bonded over it. And for those of you who remember, about 50 years ago was when man attempted the first mission to moon, the Apollo mission. And so over 5 decades, from man's first journey to the moon to Artemis, we want to see what has changed in the world of FinOps.
Now let us introduce ourselves. So Applied Materials is a global technology leader for semiconductors and materials engineering, a company that has been part of the technology journey for more than 5 decades now. Applied Materials may not be a household name, but our innovations help enable chips and displays that sit behind most of the technologies people use on a daily basis, from smartphones to cloud infrastructure to AI platforms. Our work sits deeply embedded in the foundation of the digital world.
CloudHealth has been one of the first FinOps tools to help enterprises like Applied Materials do FinOps. We've been around for about 15 years. We are also known for our dedicated partner platform that help managed service providers or MSPs do FinOps. So both Sangini and I work in semiconductor companies, as you see, and so as we collaborated on this talk, we started sharing stories of our FinOps journeys, and I have been a practitioner before as well. And we were able to see how journeys in our companies are very similar.
And you know, Sanjna, what makes FinOps interesting for us is that we both work in organizations where compute, engineering, AI, and infrastructure efficiency directly intersect with the business outcome. So all the things that we talk about today are the things that we have worked to solve and still continue to improve upon.
That's absolutely right. So it looks like we do infrastructure management for AI, but for companies that make infrastructure for AI, it's all interconnected. There's no escaping it. Okay, so what's the big idea of our talk today? Technology changes fast. From mainframes, from where you had to walk into a room physically to write and execute your code, to now agentic, where humans aren't even involved sometimes in the writing and execution of code. Technology has changed very fast in 5 decades. But the principles that have helped us with these changes have changed very slowly. You're seeing the words on the screen. None of it is brand new. They've changed very slowly or not even at all. You've been to many talks today, yesterday, and you'll go through more today. And you will hear about the latest thing about agentic AI, and that's great. But it can kind of make your head reel. What we want to do in this talk is ground us back to reality and say, we've been through these kind of disruptive changes in the past, and some of the more simplistic principles have helped us get through these disruptive changes. We believe we can do it again. And so we want you to walk away from this talk feeling good that we've done this in the past and we can absolutely do it again. Okay, so I'll start off with a question to the audience before I jump into mainframes, and I'll have a few of these questions as we keep going as well. We have some fun prizes for people who get them right. So listen, how much cheaper is 1 unit of compute today as compared to 5 decades ago, do you think? And I'm looking for a factor. I don't want the exact prices, but looking for a factor of how much cheaper it is today. 10,000 times? What? Anyone else? A million times? Okay, anyone else? A billion? Okay, so we're getting big numbers here. Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to give it to him because it is a million times. Can we run him over price from us? Thank you. So it is a million times cheaper now. We're all seeing the board tokenomics, right? I can only imagine 10 years from now, someone standing on the stage, they're going to talk about price comparison in tokens. This is the kind of scale we're dealing with here. In about a decade of my career, I don't remember a world without the word cloud in it. But today we live in a cloud-native world. Most enterprises have been solving infrastructure problems way before the word FinOps was even mentioned. Enter the era of mainframes and microprocessors. How was technology? It was scarce, it was expensive and shared. Everything was almost perfectly utilized because waste was not something anyone could afford. Unless you were a very large enterprise, which is very, very few people, most FinOps was just pen and paper. You envision yourself walking into a room, signing into a logbook, which was considered sacred. And so that means capacity planning was very strict scheduling. There was built-in governance because they monitored who walked into the room. Everything was almost perfect, right? Like you knew exactly who was using what system for what because you were bounded by a room. Okay, so this is another question. Does anyone in the audience identify this logo? Someone said, I heard someone say it. Okay, you're absolutely right. We'll give him a prize as well. Cloud enthusiasts are very, very smart. It's unfair. Next slide, Sangini. Yes, that's Lotus 123. But why are we talking about Lotus 123 right here? Before we talk about, let's click next one. What are some pivotal points, right? We cannot talk about, just wait for 1 second. So I'll ask another question ad hoc. We already have Excel, okay, no problem. Rather than Excel, okay, can someone tell me what was the year that Lotus was formed? So when was the earliest spreadsheet? Okay, what else?
You actually have.
91, okay. Close, we're getting warmer. We're getting warmer. Yes, whoever said 81. So can we run him a prize, please? Thank you. Yes, it was 81. And just 4 years later, the reason we had Lotus up there was it's a hat tip to one of the earliest ways of spreadsheet. But obviously, Excel came in here and popularized spreadsheets. So why do we have Excel here among the other giants that you're seeing on the screen? We believe Excel is very, very crucial to the world of FinOps. No FinOps practice is complete as much as we want to talk about agentic and all of that. A lot of crucial systems still sit in Excel. And so that was in 1985, not too far away. In 1999, VMware started virtualization, which led to the start of public cloud as we know it today. Amazon Web Services was the first company to start public cloud in 2006. Shortly after, we had the concept of serverless with App Engine, then Kubernetes in 2014, and 2022 was OpenAI, and 4 short years later, and now, it is the year of the agentic. It's crazy to think that just 4 years ago was when we actually started talking about LLMs in general. Okay, so what changed over time? Cloud fundamentally changed our operational velocity, right? With the start of private cloud, you no longer had to walk into a room to have your code run or deploy, which was great. Everyone's operational velocity increased. But then with public cloud, that's where things really, really sped up. People were able to provision their own resources on their own. Kubernetes came. It stopped you from getting locked into one platform. Everything's great. Faster provisioning, better interoperability, so everything should be good, right? Companies must be saving a ton of money and making a bunch of money on productivity. But nothing really changed. There were so many unanticipated challenges, which meant more waste, and there was a lot of money spent on waste for the company. Blurred accountability, because now you don't know who's spinning up what for what. And that's an allocation nightmare, especially in things like Kubernetes. Where are we now in 2026? We have GPUs, we have AI, agentic systems, and focus. So in 50 short years, we've gone from having FinOps done on pen and paper to now having a standardized billing format. What is an LLM or an agent in its simplest form? What does it do? LLMs amplify cost, agents amplify action, both amplify the speed of execution just like public cloud did, but also while amplifying risk. When Sangini and I were collaborating on the notes for this talk, this is where we came out. LLM and agentic are not the new FinOps story. They're just the latest version of an old one. Sangini, I'm curious to know, how was Applied Materials' journey from mainframes to public cloud and now agentic AI?
So I learned this from a senior colleague, and even Applied Materials had a similar journey. We went from mainframes to virtualization to cloud. And we saw an increase in scale and capacity when we migrated to public cloud. So more deployments happened, the teams moved faster, and even our governance models were evolved in order to keep up. Now we are moving into the AI phase. So as a semiconductor pioneer, we are seeing an increased demand for our AI workloads. Now this can be engineering simulation, data processing, model experimentation. And all these workloads, they are extremely GPU intensive. So with AI, we have faster provisioning, faster experimentation, and faster optimization, but also high risk. Why? Because the workloads are much more expensive, and our environments today are much more complex. So AI definitely changes the speed and scale of decision making, but it does not eliminate the need for our core principles.
Yeah, so what are these concepts that we're talking about, and what are these concepts that have stood the test of time? We'll dive into this in this next part of our talk. Measurement, you simply cannot manage what you cannot measure. Governance, asking the hard question, when do you say no? Ownership, if everybody owns it, then nobody owns it. And automation, because some agents need adult supervision.
Now let's talk about our first principle, measuring for value. So raw cloud billing is not useful FinOps data. We need to have a multi-dimensional view so we can make sense of the cost. The first dimension is infrastructure layer. Now this is the data that data generators like cloud service providers, SaaS vendors, they generate. The second dimension is product layer. This is where practitioners, FinOps practitioners like all of us, we come in and we add tags at the provider level. Third is the business layer. Now this is where FinOps becomes strategic because we are combining the consumption data with the business outcome. So for example, at resource layer, we have compute, storage, network, GPUs. We need to map it to the product layer. Which team or product this resource belongs to? What shared services are they using? Which namespaces belong to them? And finally, map it to the business layer. Is our spend within our budget? How do we see our forecast? And is this aligned with our revenue? Things like Data Connect and Perspectives and CloudHealth, they help us in achieving these. Now let's take a quick peek into Data Connect and see how it helps us to track our AI spend.
So Sangini had a spreadsheet with her Gen AI budget. See, still a lot of important things still sit in spreadsheets, same for us. So we have a click to upload Data Connect in CloudHealth. You can come in here and we have this UI. So you join data sets entirely via the UI. You don't have to code if you don't want to. So that spreadsheet that was uploaded was now joined with cost data that we already own in CloudHealth. Yeah, you're able to come in here, do an inner join, just a bunch of clicks, and voila, we have a report for budget compliance.
So now that we have connected our infrastructure, product, and business data together, our next question becomes, what exactly are we measuring? Like most organizations, we measure different kinds of metrics: budgets, cost and usage, waste, potential savings, and realized savings. Now together, all of these metrics, they tell us what we are spending, how much we are wasting, and whether our optimization opportunities are producing results. At Applied, we, the FinOps team, conduct an annual workshop where we work with our application and infrastructure teams to identify different optimization opportunities and set a target for our potential savings. Throughout the year, we work cross-functionally to achieve those savings. So for example, last year, the FinOps team performed an exercise of purchasing the savings instrument, and that contributed to 32% of our savings. The operations team, they performed right-sizing and cleanup activities, and that contributed to 23% of the savings. Database optimization was performed by the database team and the applications team, and that contributed to 16% of the savings. So now you see why all these metrics are important, because they help us to manage our spend. But they are still very infrastructure focused. And this is where unit economics comes in. So unit economics has been the thing that seals the deal for us. Some of the things that we track to make sure we are doing our jobs well is cost per job, cost per model, cost per workload. So we have our users subscribe to our CloudHealth reports and dashboards, where the numbers get updated daily, and teams are notified when something looks off. Now let's talk about the cost per Databricks job metric in detail. So a job in Applied Material refers to any automated workflow. Now this can be manufacturing analytics, equipment monitoring, or ML processing data. And these jobs, they run on cloud infra and incur cost proportional to their usage. Each job spins up compute resources, uses networking and storage, and often runs on expensive clusters or GPUs. So for example, the jobs cluster, they run our automated pipelines. The SQL clusters, they run our analytics workloads. The all-purpose clusters, they run our ML workloads. And through CloudHealth, we are able to track the cost per job, the storage layer at which it runs, cost per workspace, the table it is referring to, and which BU it belongs to. And we have all of this built together in the form of a dashboard. Now, the Databricks team uses this dashboard for BU chargeback and for identifying optimization opportunities at the job and at the cluster level. The BUs use this dashboard for spend tracking and budgeting, while the leadership uses this dashboard for visibility and business alignment.
This is a really cool dashboard, Sangini. Like SaaS and Databricks costs in general can be very complex, and this is a great way to break it down for chargeback. Guardrails. This is our second principle. Historically, governance was so much easier, right? FinOps was almost perfect in the world of mainframes. So now, companies have moved on to private cloud, and with private cloud, there was a lot of waiting around to get provisioned. There was some approval processes, and now governance kind of got a negative connotation because it made you wait. In the world of public cloud, governance is crucial because it can be complex, but it is very crucial because there isn't a clear way to make sure that you allocate correctly. Now with AI, with the potential for negative impact is a lot more. It's increased by factors. Governance is non-negotiable.
So as Sanjna said, good governance isn't about slowing the teams down. It's about creating right checkpoints at the right time. At Applied, we have governance built around resource provisioning, budget renewals, AI GPU workloads, and cost anomalies. So for example, in CloudHealth, we have set up policies for budgets with 80% threshold, and alerts are sent out to the teams via emails. Similarly, for our GPUs and AI workloads, we have policies set up that lets us select only the allowed instance type in approved regions, and provisioning happens only through certain teams. Now let's talk about our third principle, ownership. So in traditional environments, ownership was relatively straightforward. The teams owned the servers, the teams owned the application, and hence their associated cost. But today, our infrastructure, it's shared, it's dynamic, it's abstracted, especially with Kubernetes, SaaS services, AI workloads. And what this means is, now multiple teams, they share one cluster. Resources scale automatically. And one workload touches multiple services. And the result of this, ownership becomes blurred. The challenge is no longer figuring out what was spent, but trying to figure out who is accountable for that spend. At Applied, accountability starts with tagging and ownership mapping. So we have tags for application, BU, cost center, owner, fund source, etc. at the resource level. However, we have our set of challenges too. We have the missing tags, we have the incorrect tags, we have the tags with different naming conventions. Over time, we have built policies around this. For example, like we have defined mandatory tags, and we have defined policies that block deployment of resources with missing tags. So like at Applied, you cannot create a resource without the project ID, fund source, and the cost center tag. Now, we have monthly audits for these mandatory tags, and then we work with our ops team for fixing the missing or incorrect tags. Similarly, we also have an incident tag, which refers to the deployment incident number and ensures that proper workflow was followed right from when the application team raised the request to the FinOps team tagging the resource to the ops team deploying the resource. When talking about our first principle, we talked about a multi-dimensional view. And through our tags, you can see how we have connected the infrastructure, that is the resource layer, with the product layer, project and application, to the business layer, fund source and BU. Next, we have allocation models. Now that we have established ownership, we can allocate shared cost appropriately. And different services, they have different allocation models. So for example, for one of our cloud AI services, native AI services, chargeback is done on the basis of number of users. Similarly, for one of our non-native AI services, we have inference profiles in place, and then these are tagged for project, application, fund source, BU, etc. Now, depending on the model used, chargeback is done on the basis of token consumption. We were even able to drill down further and extract the cost per user metric for this service. Now, talking about Kubernetes, the cost for shared namespaces is allocated proportionally to the weighted cost distribution of the dedicated namespaces. So you see, we have a mix of usage-based and weighted cost allocation models. And then finally, we work with our finance team for invoice and chargeback. And this helps us create visibility and transparency across the finance and technology organizations.
And that brings us to our final principle, automation. Our guiding principle is that it's not about automating everything, right? It's automating the right things. Where are humans still very important? Aligning engineering and finance. Humans bridge that gap. Engineering wants performance, and finance wants predictability, and we're the ones who can define KPIs and incentives and drive actions that meet both needs. Systems can allocate costs, but only people can define ownership and incentivize accountability. We need humans to balance speed and governance. When you're writing these guardrails, human can put critical thinking into defining what those guardrails should be. Runaway costs are a very serious risk otherwise. Most crucially though, we need people to be measuring business value consistently. Your CTO or your CIO is going to tell you to use AI and build an AI bot or a business intelligence dashboard, but when he is being asked to measure the value of what we've gotten from all the investments being put in, he's going to come and ask you that question. So that's where humans are very, very critical. I'm curious, Sangini, how is Applied Materials' journey with automation so far?
So at Applied Material, our automation journey also evolved along with our infrastructure. We went from a reactive to proactive to the real time to the AI-driven phase. And with each phase, we saw a shift in the maturity model, like from looking at the spend backwards to predicting and optimize cost before it happens. So we also started from a reactive phase. We used to review our reports, we used to investigate high spend, and this created visibility, but not always timely actions. Then we moved into the proactive phase, where basic automation and governance was established. Like for example, we automated our idle resource cleanup, budget alerts were set up, tagging policies were automated, certain chargeback mechanisms were developed. Then we moved into the near real-time cost visibility, where we integrated with platforms like cost APIs, data exports, all these things. And some examples included, like we scheduled our non-prod workloads during the long weekend hours. We set up cost anomaly alerts, right-sizing recommendations. We auto-scaled our clusters. And now we are moving into the agentic AI phase, where we have started tracking metrics like cost per job, cost per user, cost per model. And these are required to build the visibility for that next stage. The table here shows 3 columns and a list of activities which we have automated over a period of time. So the first column refers to the fully automated activities. The second column refers to partially automated activities, that is with humans in the loop. And the third column refers to fully human activities. And trust me, that has been kept intentional. Cost anomaly detection and right-sizing our non-prod environments is something that we intend to fully automate. Now let's talk about our fully human activities. Risk analysis. Recently, one of the CSPs announced that they were stopping the reservation renewal for certain VM families. We, the FinOps team, we did the risk analysis. Business prioritization. You have a product launch coming up, or a project ramp-up is happening. Priority changes, right? Strategic capacity planning. This refers to things like how is the future growth? Is it aligned with our roadmap? How much is our AI adoption? And then trade-off analysis. Cost versus performance. What would be the trade-off? So you see, we have definitely become more automated over time, but we have also become more intentional about where humans still remain essential. One thing I've learned from my journey so far is that each new technology brings with itself a set of unanswered questions. And AI is no different. Let's look at some of our open challenges. First, measuring the AI ROI. It is easy to track the infra cost. You have the tokens, we have the GPUs, we have the models. But connecting them to business value is much more difficult. We see our cloud bill is increasing because of AI consumption and often end up with questions like, did AI reduce our operational effort or did it improve the developer productivity? And how we as FinOps professionals can quantify that. Second, GPU allocation. Unlike the traditional CPU workloads, GPUs are much more expensive and they are highly volatile in nature. So the question comes down to, do we allocate GPUs on the basis of reservation or actual consumption? Or it depends on business priority. Third, the shared platform Kubernetes accountability. So dedicated namespaces, they are straightforward. But what about the shared namespaces? The Ingress, the Carpenter, CloudHealth, these are the ones that create complexity. Even with the weighted allocation models in place, there are often debates about transparency and operational ownership. And with time, these overly complex chargeback models, they become quite hard to explain and manage. Lastly, we have real-time AI governance. While we have beginning to adopt the AI capabilities, AI governance, it still remains an evolving area. I believe we are in the reactive phase for this because we report on AI cost after it has happened. We detect the spikes after they have happened. And the reason for this probably because proactive governance is very difficult. Like, how do we enforce policies for the models? Do we just use like the allowed models or do we limit the number of users for the expensive models? Or even applying budget controls in real time? So over the last 50 years, I think we have definitely become good at measuring the technology consumption. Our next challenge lies in becoming equally good at measuring the technology value.
Absolutely. So CloudHealth just released our AI and tokenomics dashboard. And while it does, as a community though, while we do have some methods of gaining visibility, we're not able to provide an ROI, clear ROI visibility unless we collaborate with partners like yourself. I'm really excited to see where this journey as a community takes us. In conclusion, as you can see, the more things are changing, the more they remain the same. Measurement and governance matters. Ownership, automation matters. But what matters the most is the value that we bring from it. From mainframes or agentic, FinOps has always been about the same thing. It is about making technology investments that deliver meaningful value. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is our I'm so sorry, Dean, just 1 second. I just want to show you all, this is our FinOps Odyssey game at CloudHealth. We built this game, you can play it, the QR code's right here. We are giving away a telescope to the one who has the most, who's number 1 in the leaderboard. It's a really cool one too. So definitely play. There's a bunch of Legos that we're giving away. There's also like intriguing things like astronaut ice cream and right. So I can't guarantee how it tastes, but they're really intriguing, so stop by. We also have a coffee booth at the expo floor, so come by and have a cup of coffee on us. I believe we're giving away CloudHealth mugs as well, so come by for some fun giveaways. And let them know that you were at this talk, and that'll sweeten the deal a little bit.
Big thank you there to Sangini and Sanjna. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? And we can play with this fun box to throw around with a microphone in it. Anybody? Yep. You ready, Catch?
Thank you for your presentation. For those who might be here, such as myself, who are at the very beginning of establishing a FinOps practice, do you have any advice?
I think the 4 principles is exactly where you start in that exact order. You start with measurement. Do you have a bunch of dashboards for visibility already?
Assume nothing.
Okay, fantastic. We love those. You're in the right place already, right conference, right talk. I think the 4 principles is exactly where you would start. You would start with measuring for value, then set guardrails to make sure that you don't have an insane problem to deal with down the line. So set guardrails as you start learning. Obviously, the measuring will tell you exactly where to set those guardrails. And you can automate eventually, but the measuring and the guardrails will really help you get started. Did you want to add something, Sangini?
No, pretty much the same thing. You have to start from visibility. You have to get your KPIs. And once those are in place, you build your governance around them. You identify your automation opportunities. And voila, you are doing FinOps.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else with any questions? Yes.
I have some questions about the AI formations, what it been developed and introduced in CloudHealth, right?
Okay.
So with the new AI focus, and what else which is in the roadmap probably in terms of evolving the AI or bringing any SaaS platform integrations and stuff like that?
Yeah, right now we're doing the tokenomics dashboard, does it for all 3 clouds today. We absolutely want to include more SaaS providers as we go through our journey for sure. Right now we can give you cost per model, cost per 1 million tokens per model, really fun stuff. So stop by our booth and we'd love to show you some more.
Okay, awesome.
Great, thank you.
And after some questions, I'm very curious to know if any of you have your mainframe journey that you can share with us. If anyone has any mainframe stories, I'm very curious to know them.
I have a lot of mainframe stories, but that was not my question.
Okay.
So, you know, a lot of software today, like say Blueware, for instance, they use AI tokens in addition to the license cost. So you have all these AI tokens, and the danger is that you may count them double. You may count them into the AI bucket, and you may count them into the separate application buckets. How do you deal with that?
Absolutely, and so that's exactly where these dashboards that already have this built-in logic, they come into place, right? The way we handle it, we separate the billing entity, and so if it's coming via the marketplace, for example, Anthropic is a very big example, they bill via the marketplace, and so we can kind of separate them and ensure that they don't get double counted. there's so many ways, right? People are deploying in GPUs, people have neo clouds, there's a marketplace, people will bill you directly if you're not paying by usage and paying by person and licenses. So we have to make sure that that's where tools like ourselves will be able to help you with those logic that come inbuilt with these dashboards. Any fun mainframe stories if there are no more questions?
I think we've got a question there and then a question at the back.
I realize you said that this is still an unanswered space for you, but I'd like to hear your thinking about how you're going to establish ROI on the AI spend.
So as I said, this still remains something that we are navigating through. We have, as a semiconductor company, we are investing in AI. That's like a very known factor. But measuring the ROI part of it is what we are working with the different teams, trying to understand how is the growth looking like, how are they trying to use it in their different optimization, optimizing ways or automating things, and
CloudHealth will
we
help
will
you.
go it from there.
Yes, hint, hint, CloudHealth will help you get there. But yes, I think as we go further and further, gateways are very important. AI gateways, I think, are going to be crucial. Right now, we're talking very surface level, right? Even tools like ourselves, we can only give you cost data because that's what is exposed to us. LLM gateways, they will give us more insights into finding out things like cost per inference, and that's where we really get into the AI story. But tools can only help you as much as the data that you give us. And installing gateways would be the right first step to do.
Hi, you sounded curious about mainframe journeys, so I wanted to share and also ask a question. So our challenge has been that over the years, we've changed our ratio of fixed versus variable cost, right? So when it comes to optimizing, our app consumers, our app teams are wondering, well, if I reduce my mainframe consumption or if I right size my jobs, et cetera, I'm not really making an impact on what the enterprise has to pay because the fixed cost is still the same. I just have to spread it, a little bit differently. So I'm wondering, because our challenge is, still emphasizing good stewardship and, responsible consumption, but also how do you incentivize the app teams to actually optimize if they think that they're not really changing anything? Because it's more of a long-term optimization, right? Because your decision is later, right? So I'm just curious, and this is kind of maybe a shared challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not very familiar with mainframes, but I think that problem still existed with private cloud. And as a practitioner for hybrid cloud, I can empathize with that problem. The problem is also the same with RIs and savings plans. If you've bought RIs and savings plan, that kind of puts a flat fee structure, and that's exactly the problem that you're facing. I think it is very much a balance. Sometimes the answer might just not be to move to the next technology if you want to end of life whatever you have. That happens with commitments as well. If you have a bunch of RIs, you want to use it, if you're able to find ways you're able to use it, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to shift before it makes sense for you to shift. And that's exactly where we measure for value, right? You know your stats, clearly you know that because you've measured and you know that it's not making sense for me to move right now because I want to burn down. Maybe it's also a strategic decision to understand when you want to move on to the next thing, even while you have a little bit of waste, just so that you're not kind of missing out on the growth cycle. Yeah, but you're right to ask that question. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense to move just as yet. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions in the room? Yeah, one down there. Ready, catch?
No mainframe stories? I'm surprised. I was so excited to hear that.
I do not have any mainframe stories. Great presentation, guys.
Thank
One of the
you,
better
thank
ones
you.
of the conference. I might have missed it, but you had on the slide that the right sizing was fully automated. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit and what that actually means?
No, it is partially automated right
Partially
now.
automated.
We plan to automate our non-prod environments fully. Yeah.
Gotcha.
We won't let that happen to our production environment.
Okay, that
Not
was,
taking the chance.
that was my concern, so thank you.
I've got one question for you. On this slide here, where you've got fully automated and human in the loop, Mike Fuller mentioned it this morning in his keynote about how FinOps practitioners need to move more to the collaboration, to the advisory side of the insights that will soon be a lot more automated through agents. How are you seeing that play out, Sangini?
So Sorry.
Are you seeing FinOps practitioners move into a different, more advisory role, or have more capacity to do more insights and explanation of what's coming?
No, I think like with AI and automation, all that we are doing, we will just be able to do our jobs faster. But at the core of it, we still have to look at the spend. We still have to manage the spend. Now it depends on the organizations. You know, somebody in their team, a human would be doing, but for some companies, it would be a system that would be doing it. But at the core, our work still remains the same. Our job still remains the same. We just have to figure out ways how to do it faster. And we are figuring that out with AI.
I'd like to ask that question to the audience. How many of you feel like you have more time in your day now that AI has come and you're starting to use more of it? I can guarantee everyone is way busier now, because not only are you doing your day job, but you're figuring out a better, faster, more expensive way to do your job well, somehow. Yeah, so I don't think our job, is it changing slightly? Yes, it is evolving for sure, but no one's job has gotten easier just yet, for sure.
Brilliant. Can we have a big round of applause for Sangini and Sanjna?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.